Hello everybody and welcome to the lesson 10 activity and lecture video. There's really one topic that we want to talk about this lesson, and that is while loops. And I figured this activity is the perfect introduction to while loops. It covers all the aspects that I wanted to talk about in the lecture, so I figured make it a little easier on y'all and combine it into one video. I'm hoping this one will be pretty short. Once you know about if statements, learning about while loops is pretty easy because they kind of work the same way. While loops just, of course, have the looping functionality, which we'll talk about in this lesson. So to get started, let's go ahead and download our higherlower.java file. Save it. I'm in Chrome this time. Lately, I've had trouble opening these slides in Firefox like I normally use, so I have been using Chrome for the last few lessons, just to put that out there if you've had any issues. Now we can go ahead and import our higherlower.java. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I want to import go ahead, choose the directory we're importing from, look for higher lower somewhere over here, and go ahead and import that guy. So let's open up higherlower.java. Now, if you notice, I have quite a bit of examples in here. These were from when I actually presented on the other part of this lesson, iterators. So just to cover that, really the slides cover it all. I've always thought it was kind of weird that we talked about iterators in this lesson because we don't use them in this activity. And really, all we're doing at this point is like, hey, iterators exist. And really they're objects that just allow you to process a collection. And every iterator is going to have these two methods, next and has next. We'll talk about it more in detail later in the semester, but really it's just saying, hey, these objects exist, and by the way, a scanner is an iterator. And in a few lessons, we'll use a scanner in that way. But for now, just know that these kind of objects are out there, and they're pretty darn helpful for processing collections. So we're back in just a program with the main method. There's no graphics component to this, no paint component. And the program already has quite a bit done for you. As you can see, we have a max value, and we're generating numbers between 0 and 10. And we're going to guess a number between 1 and 10. We're going to read in that number from the user, and we're going to check if the user got it correct, and if they didn't, we'll tell them they got it wrong and print out that answer. So let's just go ahead and run it. So we're thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Guess what it is? 2. That was not correct. Sorry, the number was 10. Game over. Goodbye. So what we want to do, step 1 of this activity, add an if statement to check if the user's guess is in the expected range. If it's out of range, let them know and don't bother checking if their guess was correct. So we need to check the boundaries of our answer. So notice if we enter 11, we're allowed to guess that, but since we're guessing a number between 1 and 10, it'd be kind of silly to guess a number outside of that. So we need to add an if statement checking if their guess is in the expected range. So we don't want to check if guess is answer if it's out of the range. So what if we added an if before this and made this the else if? I think I like that. That way we don't do the if guess equals answer comparison after if we are out of the expected range. So to check if our guess is in the bounds, first we have to check if it's greater than 0. So guess, or less than 0, right? Because that's out of range. So if it's less than 0 or guess is greater than 10, it's going to be invalid. And oops, messed that guy up. So we'll print out guess is out of range. And now we need to change this to an else if. Now the syntax I have here in my else if being below the curly brace is totally fine. However, my if statements are using the kind of more cascading syntax where you have the curly brace on the same line as the if statement. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this. It's totally okay to format your if and else if statements like this if you prefer this syntax with the curly braces on the next line. However, you don't want to mix them in the same program. So you've got to be consistent. And that's kind of the rule of thumb with programming, is that you can have different styles and still be correct, but you have to be consistent with your styles. So now I am, oh, and then of course we need, I thought something looked weird, we need those up there as well if we're going to use this style. So there we go. So let's try guessing out of range again. Let's try 11, and let's try 0. And I guess we're thinking of a number between 1 and 10, so it really needs to be if it's less than 1. So let's do 0 again, because before I had run it, I saw that 0 was incorrect. So it's important whenever you edit your code to thoroughly test it, of course, by testing all different what we call edge cases. So of course, guessing 100 is going to be out of range, and that's a good test to have. But you always want to test where it's just 1 out of range, so 11, because that'll bring to light smaller errors where maybe you used a greater than or equal to when you shouldn't have, or used a greater than when you shouldn't have, or something like that. So make sure you test what we call edge cases, where it's like on the edge of being right, but it's still incorrect, like 0 and 11 in this case. So we've got that working. Let's go on to step 2, add else if else statements to determine if the guess was higher or lower than the expected answer. If their guess was lower, print higher. If their guess was higher, print lower. This is replacing the existing else clause that prints the answer and tells them their guess was incorrect. So let's go in here. So instead of having this in here, we know that if it's either going to be out of range, it's going to be correct, or it's going to be incorrect. So now in here we can have a nested if statement to check if it's higher or lower. So if guess is greater than answer, so we'll say that is not correct. Your guess was too high. And then else if guess is lower than answer, print out guess was too low. And then after our nested if else statements, we can print out what the answer really was. There we go. So let's try that out. So let's try 1. That is not correct. Your guess was too low. The number was 10. Ooh, lucky number 7. I got it. Let's try 8. That is not correct. Your guess was too high. The number was 6. Awesome. And something helpful that you can do when you're developing a program like this to help your testing is, let's just print out the answer at the beginning so we know what it is so we can test our program. So I want to make sure that even when it's 1 above or 1 below the answer, that I'm still going to correctly say it was high or low. And so we're going to print out our answer. We'll erase this before we turn it in, of course. But now, since we know the answer is 8, we can guess 9 and make sure it still says it was too high. The answer is 3, so let's guess 2. That's not correct. Your guess was too low. So that can be really helpful to help debug your program, what we call it, is to print out the answer ahead of time so we know, so we can better test our program. And of course, we'll erase that before we turn it in, so somebody playing our game isn't going to know the answer. And now we're ready to move on to step 3, which is we're going to add a while loop to keep asking the user for another guess while their guess is not equal to the answer. Once we learn about while loops, this little italicized part is going to become more important. Make sure to read their new guess each time you ask them for one. So we need to use a while loop here to basically turn this into a game and allow them to keep guessing until they get the correct answer. So first, it's important to review what a while loop is. So a while loop looks a lot like an if statement. In fact, the only thing different is the keyword here, while instead of if. In the parentheses goes a Boolean expression, just like an if statement, and just like an if statement, if that expression evaluates to true, we go in and execute the body. However, the thing about the while loop is that we start at the top and go to the bottom, just like in our main method of the body and just like our if statements. But when we reach the bottom, we're going to reevaluate the condition, and if that condition is still true, we'll execute the body again. Hence the loop. This little arrow kind of shows you. We're going to loop back around. And the while loop will keep going as long as the Boolean expression is true. Now you've got to be careful. We could introduce a while loop like this. You don't want any infinite loops in your program. See if we can proceed with errors even though it's telling me. So Eclipse can tell that this is going to be an infinite loop, and it's going to tell us that this code is unreachable down here. But let's continue to run it with errors, and you'll see what happens. Oh, unreachable code. Let's try to kind of confuse Eclipse. So that still won't work. Here, we'll set x equal to 1, and we'll say while x is greater than 0. And voila, we have an infinite loop. So it's important to make sure your while loop is actually going to terminate at some point. So let's get rid of that guy. Luckily for us, our while loop is just going to run as long as the user's guess doesn't equal the answer. So I think we need to introduce it here and put our if statements inside of it, because of course if the user guesses again, we're going to have to reevaluate. So while guess does not equal answer, we're going to loop. Now, first of all, check out my indentation's a little thrown off here. You can fix that by going up to Source and Format. So now our indentation is correct again. Just like if statements, the body of your while loop needs to be indented in. Now, we're looping while guess does not equal answer. So what happens if we get the answer correct? So the answer is 7. If we guess 7, it just says game over, goodbye, and we miss the part where we say, you got it, good guessing. Because, of course, we're looping while guess does not equal answer. And if we were to debug this, put a breakpoint there, and we guess 8, you can see that we actually completely skip the while loop. It's another useful tool, the debugger especially, is when we get into loops. And so we're going to have to move the part where we say you got it, good guessing, out of the while loop. And the best part is that we're going to keep looping until the user guesses the correct answer. So we don't even need an else if statement. So here we're just going to, if we're inside this while loop, guess does not equal answer. So then we just have to check if it was out of range or if it was just incorrect. Excuse me, and allow them to keep going. Now let's try it out. Let's guess 5 to make sure we get it correct and it behaves as expected, so that looks good. So answer is 5 here. Let's guess 2. Uh-oh. So we've got an infinite loop. Why could that be? Well, we're looping while guess doesn't equal answer, and we tell them it's incorrect, but notice we don't collect another guess. So we actually need to copy this part here. Well, paste it back into our loop, and since we know for inside our loop that they got it incorrect, we need to collect a guess from them again. So we'll read in their guess here. I'm actually going to put that little scan in right next to the prompt. I think that looks a little bit better. And I think this might be the longest program we've written together. And notice how I've separated things with white space, my variables, creating my objects that I use, getting the answer and printing it out, collecting the user's guess as the prompts and the scan are together, and my while loops group together, and then printing out the congratulations and goodbye messages and closing the scanner are all separated by white space because they are kind of separate tasks and ideas in my program, and I want to separate them so our program is more readable. So now let's see if it'll work. So let's guess 8. Not correct. The answer was too high. The number was 7. Uh-oh. And notice the number hasn't changed. And the number shouldn't change based on the activity specs. And so we need to actually get rid of our little the number was part here. Let's go. So 1, that's not correct. Our guess was too low. Let's try 3. That's not correct. Our guess was too high. 2, boom, we got it. So I think our while loop is working as expected. Now let's move on to step 4. How would you allow the user to play another game after the current game is finished? Update your program to ask the user if they want to play another game and exit only if they enter no or something similar. The user should be able to play as many times as they want, and the number they're guessing must stay the same throughout one game, but a new number should be generated for a new game. So this sounds like a really daunting task at first. But here's the thing. Just like you can nest if statements, like we did here with our else with a nested if, you can nest loops. And so we have one loop, looping while guess doesn't equal answer. We can have another loop, looping while the user has not chosen no, or no, whatever our option is. So I'm going to go ahead here, and the first thing we need to do is create a variable that'll represent what the user says, yes or no. And so let's go and create that. We'll just call it play again, and let's actually use a how do we want to read this in? Do we want them to type yes? Do we want them to type no? I think Y or N would be good. And so let's just make it a string, and we'll call it play again. And let's set it equal to just lowercase y. That way, when our loop starts out, play again, and remember, to compare strings, we need to use the dot equals method. So while play again, dot equals, we're going to check to make sure play again is y. So while play again, dot equals y, we're going to loop. So this loop's only going to have this one condition, while play again equals y. We don't have to check anything else. All we have to do is just start our loop body, nest our other while loop in it, and just at the bottom of this while loop, collect the answer from the user. Do they want to play again? So again, our indentation got a little jacked up, so let's format it. I urge you to always correct your indentation as soon as you can because it'll throw you off. When curly braces are on the same indentation level like that, it's hard to tell where you are you in your if statement or in your while loop. And so now we can ask the user, after we've printed out, after they've either correctly or incorrectly guessed, we can ask them if they want to play again. Now, we should print, you got it, good guessing too, before we ask them if they want to play again. Got to congratulate them. Let them know that they actually did guess correctly. Now we can prompt them. Would you like to play again? Now, I'm just checking for yes or no. And not even yes or no, just y or n, and that's a lowercase y. So I'm going to say just y or n after that to kind of prompt them to enter one of those two letters. Of course, they won't have to just enter yes or no, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to read in the next token of input from the scanner, and we'll call this, we'll set this equal to play again. But what if they enter like a capital Y, or what if they type the word no? What we need to do is we need to take scan.next, which is going to return the string that the user entered. And first of all, let's put it to lowercase. So remember, with strings and methods that return strings, you can chain calls to them together. So scan.next is going to return the string, and then we're calling to lowercase on the string that scan.next returned. So we're converting that value to lowercase. I'm going to do a third method call here, and we're going to get the substring from 0 to 1. And what that's going to end up doing is it's going to give us the lowercase first letter of whatever they enter. That way, if they enter the word yes or no, it'll still get checked correctly by our while loop. And it'll already be in lowercase, which is what we're checking for. That way I don't have to check for both capital and lowercase. So just know that you can chain calls together because these all return a string. Scan.next returns a string, to lowercase returns a string, and substring does as well. So let's go ahead and try that out. 10. Whoa, I got it first try. Let's try yes. Uh-oh. What's going on here? So it's just congratulating me every single time. Let's try entering no. And notice the program has ended. So first of all, I probably need some little goodbye message. We'll say thank you for playing. Goodbye. And let's format that. I'm not even going to try to indent that correctly myself. So we've collected whether or not they want to play again, but you know what we haven't done is we haven't prompted them for their guess again. So we print it out. You got it, good guessing. Would you like to play again? And what are we going to do here? Let's figure out where we need to collect their guess from. Now I could do it down here after we've prompted them for whether or not they want to play again. But what happens when we don't want to play again? We enter no. This while loop still has to be checked before it runs again. And so if we were to put the guess again down here, well then the user would have to guess even if they entered no. That's not going to fly. However, check this out. Our first guess is outside of our while loop right now, but now that we are using this while loop that is going to ask them to play again, we can actually move our guess down into our while loop. Because it is the control, this is the whole game right here. The whole guessing game occurs inside this play again while loop. And so let's try that out. Use some good white space there. Separate that out, and let's try this. Let's try 10. The guess was too high. Let's try 1. Let's try 8. Too low. And 9. Would you like to play again? Yes. So let's try 1. 1 was too low. 2. 2 was too low. 3. 7. 9. All right, so the answer was 9. Looks like it worked. Let's try capital yes. 9. Ooh, 9 in a row. Let's try yes. Is it 9 again? All right, so the answer has stayed the same. It's allowing us to collect different guesses, but the answer has not changed. And again, every game we need to decide a new answer. So I think, in addition to moving our guess inside the while loop, we also need to move generating the answer inside. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my little answer thing. And let's go ahead and cut answer out and put generating the answer into our loop. So let's try 10. 10 was too high. Let's try 4. 4 was too low. 7. Got it. Let's say yes. 4. 4 was too low. 8. 8 was too high. 6. Got it. Let's say no. I think our game is working, everybody. So hopefully that kind of gave you some insight, especially into nested loops. Nested loops are not an easy topic, and so congratulations at the end of this video, first of all, for using a nested loop in your first program with a while loop. It's no small task. If you have any questions about this stuff, please hit me up, Piazza, email, whatever. I'm here for you. We're all here for you, and I hope you all have an awesome week. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll catch you later. Happy coding.